This is the fifth in my series on the power and psychology of language. Today I'm dealing with a very common and disempowering phenomenon, hypocrisy. Whether it's in our DNA or the way that we're raised, we have this need to see the world as a safe, fair, and just place. If I'm a good person, only good things happen to me, bad things happen to bad people. When that kind of feeling is disrupted, and it often happens in relationships. So when there's a double standard, when your partner is able to say or do things that you can't do, that's hypocrisy. And hypocrisy is an example of injustice. Now, people don't like to use the term "that's not fair" because it sounds almost childish. Oh, that's not fair. But the reality is, when situations do occur that do make us feel that there is some injustice going on, it strikes at this need for the sense of security or stability that we crave. And this happens all the time when you're dealing with social justice warriors, certain feminists, not the good ones, the bad ones I've been talking about, or extremists on any end of any spectrum, right? There's nothing but hypocrisy. In another video, I'm going to give an example of how that happened to me recently. It happens all the time, but this is just one example. And I just want to use a couple of words that are pretty common, and they're not the worst examples, but they will really drive the point home. The first is unwanted sexual attention or unwanted attention. I'm using this because in my videos, I've talked about how language has changed over the years. And so today, if someone comes home from the bar and says, somebody gave me all this unwanted attention, a lot of people's schemata get triggered and think, oh my God, did he verbally assault you? Did he grab you? When in reality, maybe it was simply that some guy came up to you and asked you to dance, or wanted your phone number, or just wanted to talk. The reason it's hypocritical, and I've had this discussion with thousands of students, and at least they're honest about it. It's hypocritical because if this guy were the right guy, it wouldn't be unwanted attention. It would have been fine. Now, I'm saying all of this with the assumption that the person who approaches you is doing so respectfully. They're not breaching your personal space. They're not being threatening, intimidating, rude, or anything like that. They back off when you ask them to. So assuming that that's all in place, okay? And you went out either expecting to find somebody or thought, hey, if it happens, we'll see where it goes. And someone approaches you, and because they're not up to your standard, how dare you say that that's unwanted sexual attention? Unless you're going to use that term with every single person that encounters you, real or theoretical, you're being a hypocrite. Because, again, if it's the right person, then it's all of a sudden okay. So please do think about that, because hypocrisy truly is such an ugly trait, and we need to be mindful of how we are conducting ourselves. And in today's society, unfortunately, there are far too many quackademics or other people who are trying to really disrupt normal social interaction. And they are telling people, I said this in another video, that when things happen that maybe 10 or 20 years ago we would have brushed off, now they're being told, oh my gosh, the worst thing in the world. It does have a really disempowering effect on the person who's being told that they are a victim. They're being oppressed. It was a horrible monster who approached them, or the patriarchy is keeping them down. So please be mindful of that. The other example of hypocrisy in language is racism or sexism. More and more people today are adopting this notion that people of color can't be racist, women can't be sexist, and by the same token, white people and men can't be the victims of racism or sexism, respectively. That only works if you accept one specific definition of these terms, which includes this systemic oppression of a marginalized group. If that's the way you want to go, that's fine, that's your prerogative. Use language however you'd like. But at least be honest enough to admit that you are denying, ignoring, or negating another definition which has been around forever and which is entirely acceptable, which is, of course, that if I think that you are inferior, or I feel I am superior to you, or I have very negative thoughts, feelings, and intentions towards you, I want to treat you differently simply because we belong to different groups, okay? It's a valid definition, so why deny that? But if that's what you are going to do, then at least be intellectually honest enough to admit that if a marginalized person uses this kind of language, they are using ugly, hateful, bigoted, narrow-minded, prejudiced, divisive, and definitely not productive language. And if you're honest enough to admit that that's what's going on, then my question to you would be, why would you accept it? And the common answer is something along the lines of course, well, they've had it so rough that it's okay. It's fair for them to do this. We have to justify or excuse it. Or now it's their time to rise, or now it's your turn to feel this oppression that they felt all their lives. Well, let's take a look at this one by one. If you want to say that since they've had a terrible past, it's okay for them to use this language, then please be intellectually honest and consistent enough to accept my example here, which is we know for a fact that very many malignant narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths, people with antisocial personality disorder had horrific histories. So should we say, since this person had such a terrible past, that we should excuse them when they rob a bank, when they rape somebody, when they murder someone? But look at their childhood. As a psychologist, when I know somebody has had such a terrible past and they've become a bad person, I have sympathy, compassion, and empathy for the child that was mistreated or abused or neglected. But as an adult, this does not excuse their behavior. It only explains it, never excuses it. Now, if you're saying that since it's your time now to suffer, when has it ever worked out in history that when we allow one group that's been victimized to not only gain power, but now to hurt other people just because it's their time? Either it's their time to victimize others, or it's their time for this other group to be victimized. Okay, when has this ever worked out? Check your damn history books. So if we recognize that this type of mindset is not healthy and it's extremely hypocritical, why would we engage in it?